evening. My name is Lamin Njie, and this is The Nation Today. Thank you for joining me on my show tonight. And coming up, Election Watch reports voter buying among political parties. We have that report, but also the National Economic Council tasked to deliver recommendations on recent price hike. Halifa Sallah convenes a press conference on his recent visit to France. Abubakari Jawara Foundation launched. Also, Dr. Cherno Omar Bari launches new book. These and more, but also my guest tonight will be the Honorable Halifa Sallah. He will be speaking to me exclusively. Big interview, big guest, big interview. Stay tuned. But before all of that, let's get started, and I'll begin with my take for tonight. Thursday, that was yesterday, the 7th of April, 2022, marked 1 year since the reported Busambala murder-suicide that shocked the entire nation. Two people who live in the same compound died under very disturbing circumstances. Initial claims were that Zilsin Gomez, who killed Mary, but there was these initial claims that it was Zilsin Gomez who killed Mary Mendy, and then he later committed suicide. There are also claims that Mary's private part was removed for ritual purposes. Police spokesman Lamin Njie, that's my namesake there, at the time told me, and I quote, "We can confirm the suspected murder of Mary Mendy and suicide of Zilsin Gomez. The two deceased live in the same family compound home in Busambala. The bodies have been evacuated for further examination. Meanwhile, investigation is currently open into the matter," unquote. This was what Lamin Njie, the police spokesman, told me last year. It's now been a year and the police have not been able to really explain this incident. The issue was thrust back to the fore by a schoolmate of the late Mary Mendy, by Loka Gomez, in a tweet that has attracted a lot of attention. The Gambia police can be quite effective, to be honest, with regard to their investigations, but this one has proved a little complicated, I would believe. But the police must explain what exactly happened in this case so that the citizens can finally know what really happened. This is a case that has traumatized a lot of Gambians, but also it is a case that has upset a lot of Gambians. So that's my take for tonight. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Now, we'll get into the stories there as Election Watch. Tomorrow is parliamentary election in the Gambia. It is voting day in the Gambia. Gambians will be lining again, this time to vote for their representatives. But Election Watch, this is a group that is saying that there is this issue of voter buying among some of the country's political parties. More in this report.
The Election Watch Observer's final report on the National Assembly election campaign indicated that major political parties violated the Code of Campaign Ethics and Code of Conduct, such as the buying of voters' cards, usage of state vehicles, and distribution of money and gifts. The Executive Secretary of Peace Ambassadors, Yankuba Manjang, said KMC, West Coast Region, and URR were the regions involved in voter buying. He also explained the political parties involved in the act.
Who were involved in this voter buying? All the major political parties have their names been mentioned, from APRC, which was flagged in about 2-3 areas. You have the NPP coming out as the leaders in the voter buying crew, and then UDP following suit. And who were using the government vehicles? This was also one part that we have flagged out. And the NPP obviously came out as the leaders in that standing, and closely followed by the UDP, and there were instances of the APRC also being flagged as using government vehicles, and about 1 or 2 where GDC was also mentioned.
The report also showed that all political parties and independent candidates intensified their campaign activities within all constituencies with no restrictions. There was a low presence of security personnel on campaign grounds and COVID-19 protocols observation, the report added. The Deputy Speaker of the National Youth Parliament, Lamin Njie, said the findings confirmed increased visibility of civic and voter education made by the IEC and partners.
EWC noted that the civic and voter education campaign had not yet reached all constituencies across the country. However, during the second half of the campaign, EWC observed in 14 of 53 constituencies reported being exposed to civic education and voter information campaigns by the IEC, the NCCE, civil society organizations targeted at women, youth, and persons with disabilities. This shows an increase from first half of the campaign period when only 35 of 53 reports shown the same.
Ms. Job also explains the following recommendations made by the Election Watch Committee to election stakeholders during and post-election.
Political parties, candidates, and their supporters should adhere to IEC's mandate, cooling off period, and refrain from all campaign activities on Friday, 8 April. The media and any other groups should avoid publicizing unofficial results, and candidates should refrain from declaring victory until IEC release final results. In addition to announcing the final results at constituency level, the IEC should make public a disaggregated list of polling station level results in an analyzable format in a timely manner. Political parties, candidates, and other supporters should continue to adhere to the IEC regulations, the Code of Conduct, and the Peace Pledge during and after the National Assembly elections, and follow the prescribed legal channels to pursue any objective or grievances in a peaceful manner.
The EWC said it has trained and deployed over 400 accredited election day observers for Saturday's polls. This includes 300 stationary polling stream observers, 50 mobile observers, 53 constituency supervisors, and 7 regional coordinators.
The EWC has observed the candidate nomination process and the campaign, and will monitor the collation process and immediate post-election period. The EWC's observation of all these processes will factor into overall assessment of the 2022 National Assembly elections.
Meanwhile, the Election Watch Committee comprises 3 organizations and other network members with different expertise collaborating to observe elections in the Gambia. The committee includes peace ambassadors, the Gambia, Activista, and the National Youth Parliament. Mariama Dem reporting for Star TV News.
Mariama Dem reporting there. Now, the recent surge in the price of basic commodities and in the retail sector has left many citizens in dismay as many complain of the skyrocketing prices in the market. In curbing this and relieving the population of the shock, the President and his cabinet yesterday tasked the National Economic Council to deliver recommendations in curbing the situation. Jacqueline Colley reports.
The President and his cabinet yesterday held a closed-door meeting in which several issues and bills were discussed and approved. The Minister of Information, Communications and Infrastructure later briefed the press on the issues discussed. On the price hike, Sallah said as part of efforts to ease the burden of the cost of living in the country, they have made few decisions to tackle it.
Cabinet took note with concern the price hikes in the retail sector and its impact on the population. To this end, Cabinet has directed the National Economic Council to immediately convene a meeting to come up with recommendations that will reduce the shock on the population.
In agriculture, Sallah said a paper presented by the Minister of Agriculture on the National Food Security Pathway was adopted and discussed.
In order to accelerate the National Food System pathways, government has committed itself to fulfill its commitment of 10% of the national budget to agriculture as per the Malabo Declaration Agreement. Government has also under this scheme committed to enhance farmers' access to finance through matching grants as well as reduce cost of post-harvest losses, food waste, and improve market access for women and other smallholder farmers to both local and international markets. Government will also encourage and facilitate increased consumption of locally produced and safe quality food, including the promotion of innovative school feeding programs that use food items sourced from local farming communities and the consumption of fortified foods.
Under this scheme, Sallah said the government has committed itself under the food security pathway to promote the right to food and end hunger and malnutrition in all forms. In curbing the rate of unemployment and illegal migration, the Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Unemployment presented a paper on the framework agreement for the recruitment of Gambians to work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The agreement will assist to regularize the status of numerous illegal and irregular Gambian migrants currently residing in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. As part of efforts to reduce the unemployment rate and the flow of the youth taking irregular routes, locally referred to as the back way, the agreement signed between Saudi Arabia and the Gambia will enhance cooperation and skills transfer exchanges between the two countries. The agreement will play an important role in ensuring that labor rights of Gambian workers are protected, improve the governance of labor migration, enhancing migration and development linkages.
The paper was approved and signed by the cabinet to send Gambians to work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, the cabinet also improved the 2022 Bill of Intellectual Property, which will be read in Parliament before its enactment. Jacqueline Colley for Star TV News.
Now, the launch of the Abubakari Jawara Foundation on Thursday was preceded by a donation of 2,000 bags of rice and 500 bags of sugar to communities across the country. The foundation also gave out 5 motorcycles to the people of Basse and a whopping $300,000 to facilitate overseas treatment for a kidney patient. The internally displaced people in Foni will be getting 500 bags of rice and 100 bags of sugar from the donated items. Hadi Jaju reports.
2,000 bags of 25-kilogram rice, 500 bags of 25-kilogram sugar, and 5 motorcycles were presented for distribution to various beneficiaries, including the IDPs and refugees in Foni. Jeturo Jobate got his hope in life rekindled after Jawara gave him $300,000 to seek treatment overseas. All in all, nearly $3 million had gone into this latest humanitarian assistance from Jawara. The president of the Supreme Islamic Council, Sheikh Esa Dabo, was appreciative of the gesture.
On behalf of religious leaders in the Gambia, I would like to give our sincere thanks and appreciation to Abubakar Jawara and his foundation for this important assistance which has come at the better time, month of Ramadan, which is a month of blessings. We pray to the Almighty Allah to reward him.
Preacher Seh Hama Jaite saw a huge reward for Jawara's humanitarian interventions.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tele hadama de wonde da duniya da atele sababol de da hadama de wonka soto ke minna barni wa ala kilin wata ta Qur'an wa kono akoye ko man dhal ladhi yuqridu Allah jumale benta ala dontola ala la fenwa ka fo ya dontola akoni ya donto nabe jola akejo jonyale la mimbuka bang hadama dingo dun security te mobulo yalon ka insurance ken na balwo kono bar insurance tije min muto nyaati min tambita nafulu tiyo kala fengo bonde kadi fuarol.
Beneficiary Fatubi Bojang from Brikama was equally delighted.
I would like to thank Uncle Abubakar Jawara for the wonderful support he is giving to the community, especially on the political side. I'm from the political side. Both political and non-political, the man is supporting us. So on behalf of the chairwoman of Brikama North, I would like to thank him very much for this noble venture and also thank the women and the men participating here. Thank you so much.
Meanwhile, the CEO of Gach Global, Jeneva Seka, informed the gathering that the distribution of food aid, the $300,000 medical aid to Jaturo Jobate, and the motorcycles was in keeping with Abubakar Jawara's tradition.
Abubakar Jawara Foundation, new foundation of Metatalale, adaka mo jabale mako ifana, amanke sunkaro doronti.
This kind of support has been here for a long time now. Jawara has been providing welfare packages for the poor and needy, even outside Ramadan.
He also sent many to Mecca and continued to positively impact the lives of many.
Reporting for Star TV News, I am Hadi M. Jaju.
Thank you very much. So tonight on my show, I have a massive guest and a massive interview. The Honorable Halifa Sallah is my guest tonight. I'll be speaking to him tonight on the show. Honorable Sallah, thank you very much for joining me on my show tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Lamin.
We will be speaking to Mr. Honorable Sallah about his trip to Strasbourg in France. But before we get into that, Honorable, you have announced your retirement. Would you say you are fulfilled after a career, political career that spanned over 3 decades?
I would say that I am fulfilled as a person. I undertook to serve a country and people, a continent and the world at a very early age. I must say that I was lucky to be exposed to views that shaped my mind and my destiny. At Crab Island School, there was a symposium by a gentleman called Stokely Carmichael, then a leader of a movement of black people who were oppressed in the United States, but he eventually discovered his destiny and chose to settle in Guinea, and consequently felt that the lives of the people here in Africa is linked to the lives of every person of African descent all over the world. And the symposium he had compelled me to have that global picture of our people and to feel their suffering and to allow my heart to beat in unison with the heartbeat of every person who belonged to the African continent, who was of African origin, and by extension, humanity at large. And I must say that I maintained that commitment. I came back to this country with that goal, that objective of service. And having come to the final phase of having represented the people at the level of the National Assembly and sought to be a policymaker to really address the problem of society rather than just be an oversight of what a government is doing to address the problem, and having heard the people loud and clear that they were not ready for a person like Halifa Sallah, I felt that, well, I have done my part, and now I can do what I think I can do with the rest of my life to continue the service in another domain other than coming to say, elect me to be the president of the Republic of the Gambia. So to me, I believe I did not terminate my trajectory. It is the people who terminated it, and therefore my conscience is clear.
So let me ask you this then. Last year, in 2021, you independently sought for the presidency. The citizens did not give it to you. I mean, the last 3 decades, this is one of the things that you ever wanted, to be the head of state, the president of the republic. The last presidential election, a staggering 900,000 voters, only 30,000 deemed you worthy to be their president. In your opinion, why do you think Gambians refused to have you as their president?
No, I don't have any opinion on that. because I would have to diagnose how the Gambian people think. My conclusion has been very clear, that everywhere I went, people appreciated what I said. And there is absolutely no doubt that there's not a single Gambian who wants to be born in poverty, live in poverty, grow in poverty, age in poverty, and die in poverty. And that message was loud and clear. I had indicated exactly what an economy is, that really the ocean, the land, the air belongs to us. And we need to create sovereign national wealth. That belongs to us. The tax we are paying belongs to us. Not only that, we can create wealth. And because of that fact, the minerals belong to us. What makes it impossible for government to be a majority shareholder of the mineral resources of the land, or total holder, sovereign holder of the resources of the land, convert it into capital, inject it in an investment fund that will buy the fishing vessels, etc., to be able to harness from our waters what we need for the development of our economy. I am convinced that anybody who studies basic development in the world, development economics, will see Kuwait, will see Singapore, that all these countries rely on sovereign national wealth to develop. I dare say that no economist can challenge this, that sovereign national wealth is the fundamental basis of sovereign development of all nations on earth at this, in the 21st century. And I am making this loud and clear, and I am sure that every human being will discover ultimately that what I'm saying today will become a law of development now and tomorrow. So my answer is very clear, that everything said was accepted by the people. So I concluded that the people voted for me with their hearts and voted against me with their hands. Why they did that is not for me to analyze, it's for analysts to really analyze. But I feel loved, respected, honored everywhere I go, in the National Assembly, in the street, abroad. So I feel respected and honored. So I would not say people have rejected me, but somehow they do not want me to be their head of state.
I am asking you this because I have struggled really, and I know a lot of Gambians have also struggled in terms of understanding this irony. There is no doubt that Halifa is competent when it comes to this job. I mean, everybody believes in that. You are saying your messages were in fact resonating with the Gambian voter, yet they did not vote for you. So this is what a lot of people cannot understand, including my very self.
Well, as I said, I will not venture to read the minds of the people, but I believe that sooner or later, those of you, you are very incisive in your inquiry, you will be able to give me the answer. I think I'm also still searching for why.
So what is the lesson for you then in the past election? I mean, over the years, what your party has done is to build coalitions, to support other, to be part of other coalitions and political groupings to seek for the presidency. For the very first time, Doi went solo, Doi went independently for the presidency, 2021. What are the lessons then for you?
Well, I believe the lessons are very clear, that contrary to even the assumption that I had always wanted to be a head of state, I must say when we started, it was Cedia who stood in 1992, in 1996, in 2001 as our presidential candidate. I have really never sought to be a presidential candidate because I felt that my role in Gambian society was to lead from the back rather than from the front. I particularly became the presidential candidate of the party because of the constitutional restrictions that were ultimately established and because of coalition building. And as you can see, in 2016, I accepted to support another candidate so that we'll be able to effect the change that I felt was absolutely essential. So to me, the direction of my mind has always been to serve, regardless of where. And that's why I'm saying not standing as a presidential candidate will not bar me from serving the country until I enter my grave. So I believe a life of selfless service will always be the life I would live, and the life that I would wish to die for and live a legacy for others to build.
So in terms of, the lessons, that's the lesson for you regarding your political career. But also, let's also look at it this way. I mean, the transition, we had a dictatorship, 2016, you were part of that, effort to bringing down the dictatorship and bringing or restoring democracy in the Gambia. You have always been there. And you are saying you are very much loved and respected, and your message is something that Gambians would hear and fall in love with. Yet you have some of your critics who would say your ideas are outdated. These are crude communist ideas. You are saying that eventually Gambians will understand that the law of development is in fact the sovereign national wealth.
Well, as I said, there are a lot of polemics, political polemics. I don't think anybody has ever challenged me to a debate.
Well, SFL has challenged you
on those issues, but eventually I think the public opinion is on my side rather than on their side. So as a result, I don't think those views really stand, because nobody has ever been able to really make them stand. What is very essential is that we have adhered to science, not ideology. I think that is the fundamental difference between DOI and all these parties we have seen all over the world. And when I stand at the ACP EU Parliamentary Assembly and speak, communists, socialists, conservatives, Greens, everybody accept that this person who is talking is saying things that I can accept, that resonate with really reason and knowledge. So that is really what matters. And coming to the issue, I have always said that there is simply no government on this earth that is not socialist. Because governments are elected to manage public resources for what purpose? To render public service. Which government on this earth has ever been established to collect money to give it to individuals for their individual benefit and not for the national? It does not exist. So I believe that political illiteracy is why people get into this type of dialogue in the first place. Because if you know what a government is and why monarchs were removed, why republics were established, sovereign national wealth established, sovereign republic established, sovereign citizen established, giving power to elect representatives so that they can manage their national resources for their benefit, then nobody will talk about any other system except a socialist system in managing the affairs of humanity. I am convinced that because of political illiteracy, we try to use a language that confuses people. But Lamin, I have said, and think about it very carefully, since Gambia became independent, look at your councils. All rates, all resources collected from any region goes to the area council or the municipal council. And your wards, your villages are left without resources. Which village in the Gambia has a village treasury?
Clearly none.
None, since independence. DOI is the first and only party that says that trajectory of development is anti-people. It's centralized power. Even this guy you said...
But where do you have that in the world? Where you have villages have their own treasury. Where do you have that in the world?
I am saying that anywhere you go to Europe now, anywhere, is the councils that are facilitating community development, because decentralization of power, devolution of power, was done precisely to involve the people in development. I am saying that everywhere, in every ward, people are paying their taxes. They're paying rates. They have markets, etc. That should be kept in that ward treasury or village treasury for the development of that village. What else should come to the region? The regional fund should come from our sovereign national wealth. When we invest in minerals, when we invest in the ocean, when we invest in all areas of development and harness that, then when we come to share during budget session, that national cake will say the municipalities will have this, the area council will have this, and that is the fund that comes to the municipalities and the area councils. For what? For development, for distribution to the wards, whatever project they have that they cannot finance from a tiny village or ward fund, then is supplemented. We are saying that is the way to eradicate all the potholes that you've seen, the issue of flood, anything about building bridges. Is not done by single National Assembly members who will say, I will build it. You know, that is a joke. The reality is that that's how development should really be placed in a modern world. We have the brain to think. We have the brain to come up with the policies. And we have sold those policies, and I'm sure any Gambian who thinks will know that what we are saying is the way forward. And we sat down to think about it and come up with those solutions. So in short, we have solutions to Africa's problem, to Gambia's problems. But some are saying, well, why are you so unique? Why should you be the only people? Well, how did the world develop? It developed from ideas, pioneers coming up. Your sovereign national wealth, read Kuwait. Now we have the internet. Just to go and Google sovereign national wealth and Kuwait or Singapore or even the United States or Norway, you will see that sovereign national wealth is the basis of their development. But we look at them with reverent awe. How did these people develop? That's precisely how they developed. And we have indicated that clearly to the people, and we have transformed that now into a body of ideas that you call a manifesto. So in short, when it comes to democracy, you talk about communism, etc. Well, what is communism? It's a stateless society. You know, those who know the scientific basis will never call a China or this because it's a different framework. It's a stateless society. China is not a stateless society. Soviet Union has never been a stateless society. So we are saying that, in fact, the problem in the world is what we have tried to address as DOI. That is, you have a sovereign people without empowering them. You have read our manifesto. We have said that the greatest threat to democracy is to create a standing army that is an instrument of coercion. You can have election every 5 years, but as long as you have an army that is an instrument of coercion, you cannot have democracy that is at the level of really empowerment of the people. We are saying, if we were in office, that standing army will be transformed into a productive force, trained to build bridges, trained to build wharfs, trained to build roads, trained to build institutions of the state, so that it becomes a source of training, a disciplined workforce for a nation, not an instrument of coercion. We've emphasized the need to empower the people so that even religious leaders, etc., can be transformed into defenders of human rights, that they can enter police stations, they can go to prisons to examine, people can report issues. So in short, to be fully honest, we have been very creative with ideas, and those ideas, if the people really allowed us to implement, would have helped the world, especially Africa, to take a new turn in development and in defense of democracy and human rights.
Let me ask you this then. What is your opinion or your view on the issue of politics of money? Because if you look at DOI has a different style when it comes to how politics is conducted and done in this country. You have other parties, and I'm sure even they would have experience when it comes to this. When you go to the citizens or when you go to the voters, they tend to explain their problems to you. And I've seen, I've seen political parties take up those problems in terms of trying to address them. You go to a particular community, you give them a borehole, for example, or you give them caleros, cooking pots, or you give them money, liquid cash. They is not a party that does that.
Well, if you look at it, Lamin, there are certain things which are entrenched in a political system, and to uproot them requires real transformative agenda. Look at 2016, what we sought to do. We knew that all these problems existed, but you tend to perpetuate yourself in office through patronage. But you look at the Elections Act.
But this was not just the incumbent. Even opposition parties were doing it.
I'm coming. I'm addressing the heart of the problem. That's why I did not reuse it, Doi versus the other parties. I'm simply saying that this became entrenched. But if you look at the Elections Act, it criminalizes patronage. It criminalizes inducement. That everything that you give for vote, you will see it in the act. It's a criminal act. But which type of political sensitization had ever taken place, and which empowerment of the IEC to such a level that it is bold enough to implement what is the law? That's where the problem lies. It's tradition versus the law. The law has never been implemented because the law has never been really domesticated. It has never been transformed pedagogically into something that will help the child at school to learn, to understand that this is the type of state we are going to build, a state that makes you sovereign, so that nobody can buy you, nobody can force you, so there's no inducement, there's no intimidation, you are a sovereign free citizen. That's where human rights comes. Human rights come being the sovereignty of each of us being respected, because it says the sovereignty of the republic resides in you and me. So we should really transform up, not from just a legal text into socialization process of creating the human being, the sovereign person. We've never done that. So therefore, when we had this change in 2016, the trajectory was, let's move from the past and move into a new terrain of building the sovereign Gambian. Let's have a 3-year term for the presidency. And let's use that term to build a constitution, to carry out civic education, to forget about partisanship and try to build a new Gambian, one Gambia, one nation, one people. That was the trajectory of some of us. We cannot impose it on everybody else. But my answer to your question is, if we had succeeded in doing that, then self-perpetuating rule would have been history. And the new agenda is that any political party that comes, we would have created all these rules, we would have sensitized people on the Elections Act, and every Gambian will know that I'm going to vote on the basis of informed choice. That has to be a tradition built. It is yet to be built. So therefore, people still exploit that, because you want to get to power with haste, and you know that with patronage you may be able to get so, well, then you do what they say, the Machiavellian attitude of whatever works, let me do it. And I think this is where our problem lies, and not only trying to put Doi above everybody else, but it has been our candid objective to build that type of system where the Gambian becomes sovereign and decide on informed choice. And we continue to perpetuate that. How successful it is, well, we cannot say at the moment. Maybe the results of these elections will tell us what type of assembly we're going to have. But I am convinced that the way the world is going, we must move towards that direction. Otherwise, Lamin, we will not be respected in the world. You can see what is happening in Mali. There is a reversal. There is a rollback of the sovereignty of the people. And they fool the people all the time. You feel that by carrying out a coup d'etat, the government was corrupt, then you are really serving the interests of the people. No, it is the people. Even if the electoral process has all these defects, is to address the defects, redress the defects. It's not to abrogate the sovereignty of the people. And every coup d'etat is an abrogation of the sovereignty of the people. Unless immediately you call for a national conference involving everybody and move immediately to elections, then you have a quasi-monarchy. So this is our problem.
Honorable, one thing that has continued to rage is the issue of non-citizens voting in the 2021 presidential election. What do you think about this? I mean, what's your opinion? Do you believe that those people who are not citizens and they voted in our election or interfered?
Lamin, you see, people in the country, and I think this is why, for me to distance myself from representative politics, I will be able to help the nation. The problem you must diagnose. To look at foreigners voting, is a very short-sighted way of looking at our political evolution. The Constitution is very clear, and our laws are very clear. Since Jawara's time, and it was easier then, it was very clear that at birth you should have a birth certificate. So if we started at that time, that the alcalos of the villages will be transformed into registers of birth, death, and marriages, and they have a clerk doing their registration.
But this law only applied to Banjo.
Well, no, I'm saying if we had,
yes,
laws are made by National Assembly members.
Yes.
Our parliamentarians, then called House of Representatives, should have realized that nation is about citizenship, isn't it? You cannot have a nation without citizens. So the first thing that you guarantee is the citizen. That I am a citizen by what characteristics? It is there in the Constitution. By birth, by naturalization, by descent, by registration in terms of marriage. That has always been there. So it means that from the inception, if we really wanted to build a nation, that's where we should have started, that each alcalo in each village will be transformed into a registering officer who would register of birth, death, marriages, so that anybody born will be registered, entered. And then that will be plowed into the national register for your citizens to be registered. Then those who come into the country, you take them through proper immigration process and advise them if they want to be a resident, from resident to want to be permanent residents, from permanent resident to be citizens. So it's a graduation of a process of the person who really wants to stay in the Gambia to become a citizen of the Gambia. And if a person can be a citizen of the United States, I don't think we can ever have a law that says nobody can graduate to be a citizen of the Gambia, which means in the inception, if you had lived here for 5 years, you could actually apply for naturalization. But nobody had informed these people who came and resided in this country how to become citizens. And that's where the disease was inherited. What should have been done at that time, if it was done and maintained, then we will not be talking about this problem.
But to my question, do you believe that non-citizens voted?
I am coming finally to your question. I am saying what we as citizens should focus on is not this particular election, but focus on the law and how to remedy it in the coming constitution. Who could have been a citizen of the Gambia, but by virtue of ignorance, one is not a citizen, but would have been qualified based on what is constitutionally expressed and statutorily expressed. Then we can put that in the constitution that such people can have fast-track citizenship to become citizens of the Gambia. Those people who are yet to be citizens who do not qualify, then they are properly educated to take the necessary steps to ensure that they have their residential permits so that if they meet the age required, they'll be able to apply for citizenship, and we educate them. So once we do that during these 5 years, we will not be talking about this problem. We have not done anything to handle the problem. So when the problem haunts us, we cannot take this, what you call fire brigade measure, that you want to solve the problem immediately. That's not my character, and that's not my approach. I believe that this election that has passed, we contested the elections based on all the flaws that we have seen. So it's not honorable after we participate to come back and say, well, Halifa Sallah has 30,000 votes, but because foreigners voted for Adama Barrow, then my 30,000 votes must change somehow to mean that, I could have won the elections without foreigners voting. That does not make sense.
You were not seen at the protest. At least 2 or 3 of the candidates met to protest President Barrow's victory. They stayed away from that. No. They said that the election was stolen, even though at some point they went their separate ways. But this is what the opposition did. They was not part of that.
But it's their right to, protesting against anything is a right.
Why did you not join the protest?
But each sovereign party has a duty to examine the results of elections and take a stand.
Was it free and fair?
I have emphasized to you that once you accept the game, you have no right to criticize it. We knew
that is when it is free and fair.
We knew that money. Well, when the free and fairness, you must examine 2 phenomena, Lamin. That is what you call formal democracy and substantive democracy. From a substantive democracy analysis, you will say once you engage in patronage, once you induce, then it's not free and fair. You have a right to state that, but it is still meaningless, because if you say something is not free and fair, you must go to the courts to defend your case, and if the court says it's not free and fair, yes, that is what is legally established as not being free and fair. But from formal democracy, if I allow myself to be induced from formal democracy, yes, it means that I am corrupt. So the voter is corrupt, the person corrupting the voter is corrupt, and they combine together to give a given result. Who am I to question that? I should just accept that my society is corrupt.
I want a straightforward answer from you. I have interviewed political leaders here. I have some who said that this election was not free and fair. I have those who believe that it was free and fair. Where do you stand?
I am very straightforward. I am analyzing for you that there is substantive democracy, which I gave almost my life for in 2016, so that we can educate our citizenry, so that we remove patronage from our voting system, so that the person will make an informed choice. That was derailed. Substantive democracy does not exist in the Gambia. We wanted to cultivate it, and it was not successful. What we have is formal democracy. And I think formal democracy is better than no democracy at all. So formal democracy means that once the voter can go to the booth and vote without anybody saying, put it here, if the result comes, we will accept it. And we will accept it as being fair. We will accept it as being free, because the voter was not compelled to put it this way or that way, and in the counting of the votes, nothing was done to manipulate the actual counting of the votes. And I believe you have heard all leaders to say that they don't have problem with people going to cast their vote and the counting of the vote and the declaration of the results. There is no single leader who is opposed to that. So as far as we are concerned, that is formal democracy, so we can accept the results.
So let me ask you this then. I mean, we've seen the Casamance disturbance. I mean, it has affected citizens, Gambians, who live at the border in Foni. In your opinion, what position should the Gambia take in this conflict in Casamance?
Yes, this conflict in Casamance has been here for quite a long time, since the 1980s. 1982, if my memory serves me right. And we followed it up. DOI, more than any other political grouping, has followed this issue in Casamance from inception. We've interacted with its leaders, the Jamaanoos, the Abdujus, all that forced Republican trend. So we know that the problem can be solved. And we have said that what is important and which can now be done very well because of the resources that are being generated in Senegal, their gas and all this, that what you need to do is to ensure that the people in that area are integrated into mainstream Senegal, with schools, with hospitals, with roads, with development that will enable every citizen of Senegal to benefit from the resources of Senegal. It's more a policy of decentralization. And that's why even in our manifesto we have said that if we were to take over this country, the first recommendation we're going to make is a sort of a donor conference for Casamance, for Senegal to convene that, so that the international community will take cognizance of the developmental vacuum chasm in Casamance, and then we come up with an agenda for ensuring that Casamance is integrated into the rest of Senegal in terms of development. We are convinced that once that approach is taken, that the problem of Casamance will be easily solved. So we are ready to cooperate even with the existing government as it stands, to work with the government of Senegal, so that you offer a package. Halifa Sallah can be given retirement residence and all the wherewithals of somebody who is treated as an important personality in a country, even if not as a head of state, so that he has very good retirement. And then look at the logs that they have in Casamance. These are developmental projects. Why can they not invest so that that becomes a real source of income for some of those rebels that are, or armed opposition that are in Casamance, so that they can enter businesses, run those logs as businesses, and ultimately engage in productive endeavor. I believe if we take that trajectory, the Casamance problem will be history.
Honorable, what's your biggest achievement as the head of the PEC committee in Parliament?
Well, I will come to you again so that we can look at my whole legacy in the National Assembly and the roles that I've played. I believe the most important development is to be able to carry out oversight over the public enterprises and see how they perform their functions. You can see in the media what oversight really meant, and you can see how they have regularized their submission of the activity reports and financial statement. I'm hesitating because I don't want to get into the Parliament too much at the moment.
You don't want to get into that's why
until I finish. You know, I'm still a parliamentarian, and
at least until
I'm representing the next committee. I should not speak, but I must say that now they know that the National Assembly is an authority. That was never known before, that the National Assembly is as important as the executive in holding public enterprises into account. And I'm sure that afterwards we'll be able to get into
I actually brought this issue up because, you know, as a journalist, you interact with a lot of people. And I have come across claims by some of your critics that Halifa has never prepared a report regarding the PEC committee.
I think
that
every National Assembly member
never finished with the report.
Every National Assembly member understands the role Halifa Sallah has played in helping the National Assembly to know what procedure is in building the institutions of the National Assembly. And I think you've seen me reports on bills, very extensive reports in bills, and showing how those bills were in fact processed in the National Assembly and eventually change entirely. So when it comes to PEC, you will see our report, the 5-year report. That's why I don't want to get into it, because it's the National Assembly that should deal with that. That is a report that has never, ever been submitted in any jurisdiction as far as I'm concerned. It's extremely comprehensive and will serve as a template for the future. But we will come to the reports when I finish with them.
Okay, let me now bring you to your France trip. We are desperately running out of time.
Yeah.
So you traveled to Strasbourg to the joint parliamentary session.
And just to address this issue, I think you know that preliminary report was submitted. Statement was given to Parliament showing that because of the backlog, we are creating a 5-year comprehensive report. And I believe that all these are known. I don't know which critics you've spoken to, but I think the National Assembly has seen our work, and we've been praised for it.
So to your trip now to Paris, let me take you to your trip to Paris. What was that trip all about? I mean, just can you explain that to the citizens in just 2 minutes?
Well, it is important to know what parliamentary diplomacy is all about. Parliaments do not exist in a vacuum. You have the Pan-African Parliament, which integrates the parliaments of Africa. ACP-EU, which integrates the parliaments of
the 2 continents.
Well, there are 4 continents, 105 states, with 79 members from ACP states, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific, and 27 members from Europe, Britain 28, but Brexit, they moved out. So the Assembly brings these different groups together to try to come up with certain policies that will serve the interests of all of them. And those policies are brought to the Assembly for scrutiny. So we do serve as oversight, we do pass resolutions, and those resolutions are passed to the Council of Ministers and the European Commission for them to implement. So it's a very effective institution, and in this meeting that we have just conducted, the issue was Ukraine. Now, don't be surprised if they put conditionalities on some of your governments, even send your citizens back, etc., as a matter of conditionalities in terms of illegal immigration, etc.
You mean because of the Ukraine war?
Well, no, I'm just saying conditionality, that if you do not support what a group says, then they put you under real pressure and sanctions. So I went to fight that, for them to see that we are no longer their spheres of influence. We are sovereign countries and citizens, and each sovereign country has a right to self-determination and independence, and the sovereign people a right to self-determination and independence. And all countries must respect these 2 rights if we are to have world peace. So if we see the problem in Ukraine, we should, out of our own national conscience, take a stand that the attacks that are taking place should stop, and they should move towards reconciliation, dialogue, diplomacy, and political settlement. I had made very clear, and it is accepted there, that if you cannot impose your will on a particular country by war, you cannot win a war. And that war is irrational. And as far as I'm concerned, the war in Ukraine is now irrational. Russia may have felt that NATO was a threat, but after almost getting to the 2nd month, and NATO has not really intervened militarily, so it is clear that NATO is no longer a threat to Russia. So it means that Russia must come up with a political program, Ukraine must also come with a political program, and the 2 must work together and explain their political program, and diplomats must try to see how to redress the political program of the 2 contending forces. And I believe that we can get a solution to the problem. And African governments must take a stand, especially the African Union, to help Ukraine to move in that direction.
Cost of living has been on the lip of almost every Gambian. In your opinion, what do you think is the solution?
Well, the solution is for us to produce and produce and produce our means of survival. We have always said that self-determined development is the basis of existence of every nation. Yes, we can trade, but fundamentally our food must be in our hands. And you know, I know, that producing 57,000 tons, 50-something thousand tons, when you need 200,000 tons, how many years since we are independent and the land is there? Why is it that we have not used sovereign national wealth to give the farmers seed, fertilizer, farming implements to farm? I believe that, yes, we need to find solutions by ourselves to our food security. And that's what we have not done, and we must do that.
In the interim, what do you think the government should do?
In the interim, all governments must always examine your importation, the duties, the excise taxes you put on your importation, the type of food that you are importing, what are your priority diets, and what must be a necessity for you. And therefore, you must either subsidize some of the food products to ensure that it is accessible to the population for a given period. These are all things that an economist must sit down and calculate. They are not things that you just promise to make, but it means that you can study the whole import bill, the food bill, examine really what you can do either to eliminate certain excise taxes or to even subsidize to ensure that your population will be fed in the short run while you engage in self-reliant production in the long run.
Honorable, in the last 5 years, finally, before we end this interview, I have observed all of the country's political leaders. Since politics brought you and President Adama Barrow together, you are one leader who is quite diplomatic. In fact, you have been quite kind in terms of how you go about criticizing him. But lately, you have been speaking so strongly against him. What changed?
Not against. I think the word against makes personal rivalry. I'm sure President Barrow knows that I'm not his rival, and I know that he's not my rival. But there are political interests. And when political interests are being pursued, they should be pursued with decency. So as far as I'm concerned, I've been decent. Decent to Dawo, decent to Barrow, decent to Mama Kande, decent to every politician in this country. I don't think anybody can accuse me. I don't know why they focus on Barrow. Anybody can accuse me of political indecency. I've always been decent. But also I've been very, very firm on defending my integrity and the integrity of the party and the integrity of the members of the party. So therefore, when person departs from decency, of course, I have every right to respond to show that we do not deserve that. We deserve respect.
What do you say to the claims that you built a mountain out of a molehill by coming after President Barrow for simply saying that he's going to retire Sidia Jata? Well, I mean, you have people who say, well, but that is just political rhetoric. It's not a big...
That's an opinion, and that's my opinion. So it means that, yes, that's their opinion, and that's my opinion. My opinion...
Your opinion is to go after him?
Well, my opinion is to ensure that he respects people who deserve respect. I believe that Barrow should be the last person who would appoint people who are above 60, actually going 70, as deputy speakers, as speakers, as ministers, and then now tell Sidia Jata you should retire on age grounds. I think that is an assault on the integrity of Sidia. He does not deserve such a thing. And looking at Sidia, if you look at certain deportation of Gambians that should have occurred, as the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, he played a major part in getting the Europeans to restrain themselves so that at least what they would have done would be terminated. So therefore you need personalities like that in the National Assembly, because it's not only going there, as young people say, and talk about oversight here and there. There is parliamentary diplomacy that must be carried out with seasoned people who the international community will regard and have respect for in order to communicate. So you need personalities like that. Even outside the National Assembly, President Barrow does not need the retirement of Sidia. These are people, if I were head of state like him, and Sidia did not belong to even my party, these are people that you look at and put in the African Union, in ECOWAS, in committees of elders, eminent persons, so that they can continue to influence what happens in your country. These are not people to disregard. And I don't think it was really an act of decency to say what he did. And I had to say everything that I needed to say to make sure that I ward him off that trajectory.
So you have quit active politics. But I know President Adama Barrow said he approached you to give you a job in the last government. You declined. You did not take. And should the president come to you again to give you some role for you to come and help him, let's say wants to make you an ambassador or wants you to serve in some role in his government as a way of helping him build the country, will Honorable Halifa Sallah accept that invitation?
Well, I think you are marginalizing my role in Gambian society. I don't know why people keep on saying being given a job. That's, as you said, being given a job is not something that Halifa Sallah at his age is really looking for. I think I can live honorably until I die without being given a job. I have a duty to perform.
The job is to serve.
I have a duty to perform, and duty means that at this time, it is better for me to demonstrate independence. And if President Barrow sees that this particular person on this occasion can actually perform this particular role for the nation, why wouldn't I get up on 2 weeks, 1 week to perform a particular service? This particular advice, why wouldn't I do such a thing? I've already announced that for anybody, not only for him, for anybody, I am ready to serve, and people have seen that I've been serving in all capacity. If you go to the National Assembly now, go and talk to the clerks, etc., and you see the duties that I perform that has nothing to do with my function as a National Assembly member. Go and talk to the members. It's a similar situation. I do everything that is necessary to assist people to grow, to assist systems to develop, and I'm ready to do so at any time.
Honorable, finally, and this is just to laugh, maybe, but what is it with your trademark white haftan? Some years back when you were much younger, you were different.
Well, indeed, I came to a point where people were counting the number of clothes I have and the clothes I wear, and I see that what is wrong with these people? It became an issue. So I said, okay, let me show you that I can also sidetrack people from that trajectory. So I started wearing just white. And then you say, is the person with the white? So I think they've lost track of how many clothes I wear and how many clothes I own.
You must have sold a lot of these white haftans then, huh?
Well, as you can see, you don't even know how many I have. Maybe I have only 2. So you would not know. But now I've saved myself from that type of opinion that they were developing at the time.
Right. Smart, very smart. Honorable, thank you very much for coming on this show tonight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Honorable Halifa Sallah was my guest for tonight. Thank you for being there. I will see you on Monday. Until then, goodbye from me.